Hello and welcome back to the Gong Pod, or should I say...
Welcome back to the Gong Pod. Meh.
Apologies, I just found out that I can actually up-pitch my voice like that. If you want me to do a pod one day speaking like that, just shoot us a message on the Gong Pod socials, which you probably should follow. Gong Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, all sorts. Make sure you do give us a follow, though, in all seriousness. The support is much appreciated. Thanks for engaging with our content as well. And be sure to listen to the pods week in, week out. It's only going to get better. We're looking to improve it as the time goes on as well. Okay? But, yeah, did you like that high pitch? Give me a clap. Yeah, thank you. All right, that's enough with me and my buttons this week. So we're going to get into, this is obviously our local pod, and we discuss everything going on in the Gong. We give some shout-outs, highlight things that really don't get highlighted too often in our regions. But hope your weekend was better than mine in terms of sporting teams. I had the pleasure of going to watch the Hawks on Saturday night. Obviously, the result didn't go our way. Atmosphere was great for the first three quarters, and then obviously as Melbourne United took over and won the game, it was the energy was sort of zapped out of the arena real quickly. But for those first three quarters, it was definitely really entertaining and a good little thing to watch. But yeah, disappointing to see us throw away that, I think it was about 10-point lead at halftime. So that first loss, and Rugby League was fully back on the weekend as well. Unfortunately, I'm a Parramatta fan. So when you conceded 46 points by halftime and then you go on to lose your 6, yeah, it seems like 39 years of pain is going to turn into 40 next year. But yeah, in Riles, we have to trust, unfortunately, because we've signed up for a few years. Riles, he is a Wollongong boy, fun fact. Obviously a former Dragons player, but he's also a Wollongong boy. So, yeah. Anyway, my weekend, I just spent half of it crying into the pillows. Okay, so what's doing locally? Not too much in terms of news, to be honest. It really strikes out to me. The one that I thought was a little bit of fun trivia, though. So last Saturday was 10 years since that Qantas Boeing 747 landed in Albion Park. You'll remember it years ago. It was this big... retired Qantas airliner. It was massive, and there was all that talk about how it was going to land on a tiny runway at Albion Park or Shell Harbour Airport or whatever it is. Excuse me. And everyone just gathered around across the whole region, got vantage points of the plane coming in. But Saturday was 10 years since that happened, and that really terrified me. I was in year 10 back then, but it really hit me there. So, wow, 10 years since that happened. And I believe John Travolta's plane's coming to Haas Aviation Museum as well. So, for the aviation folk out there, keep your eye on that. But I highly doubt any of you listen to this pod anyway. Okay, so top Gong this week. So we'll revisit to last week. We did top schnitzels in the Illawarra, and the suggestions were as follows. Obviously, I called in resident schnitty expert Cody Gillis to help me out, and his favourite was Dandaloo Pub for several reasons. But the big one that stood out to me was apparently they do $10 pub and chips deals, and you can get an extra schnitzel for $7. So you can get 2 for the price of 1 for $17. I mean, I can't argue with that. Collies, obviously massive palmy. The Illawarra Hotel got a few recommendations. The Bally Pub also as well, and the Central Hotel. This week, though, I want your top coffee places in the Illawarra. Now, I've sort of alluded to my favourite ones before. I mentioned Bread, Espresso, and shout out to them. And I've been told the Crazy Horse in Fairy Meadow on the highway there is a good one as well. But I need to shout out my local Smith's Lane Dairy. It's in Wongawilli, couple of k's from my house. You can never go wrong with the pancakes at Smith's Lane Dairy, the plain ones. And I've got to shout out the coffee as well. I've always been a fan of the coffee at Smith's Lane Dairy. And the view at the foot of the escarpment is gorgeous. I think it was an old workhouse of some sort in Wongawilli. So they're going to be my shout out this week. So they're my coffee suggestions. But Smith's Lane Dairy, you're my Gong shout out for this week. My local shout out to yous. But I want to know, where are your top coffee places and recommendations in the Illawarra? That's it before we get into sport. So let's get into some sport. And the first things first we have to touch on is the Hawks. And unfortunately, it is an uphill battle from them here. Nothing they can't do, but it is going to be tough. So they went down 96-88 on Saturday night at the WEC. 5,500 sold out at the WEC Entertainment Centre. But unfortunately, so the boys blew, I believe it was a 10-point lead at halftime and went down by 8 in the end. So the biggest one that stood out to a lot of people was 35 points scored in the second half. Obviously not good enough, and even as a basketball novice, I can pick that up. But the main issue is now the home court advantage we got from finishing above United is now gone in this series. So it means we have to win away. The good news is, though, we've got a crack at doing that tonight when this comes out. They take on Melbourne United at John Cain Arena in Melbourne, 7:30 Wednesday. But before we get into that, we're going to touch on the game on Saturday night. So first half was really good. The first half, it seemed like they just had that edge, which United was sort of like Chris Goulding, for example, was contained quite well the first half in particular. I think he had 2 fouls in the space of like 4 minutes or 2 minutes or something like that. So there was a bit of time he spent off the court in the first half, but Wani Swaka did a very good job on him defensively. And Sam Froling, I thought he looked quite strong there as well. But unfortunately, our two starting guards in Harvey and Kell, they didn't fire, unfortunately. So Tyler was 4 from 10 from the field. Trey was 3 from 11. Tyler finished with 9 points. Trey finished with just 6 points after his massive game last Wednesday, which we discussed in our last pod as well with Grace Hamilton from the Mercury, if you want to go back and watch that. In terms of double-digit points, so 4 players scored double-digit points. Wani Swaka scored 11. Sam Folling with 16 was our top scorer. Davo Hickey with 14. And Toddy Blanchfield, who in particular, his first stint really stood out. He scored 13 points in the end. Went a little bit quieter. Like the heat sort of died off towards the end. I don't think quite is the fair word. But yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't enough for us. One thing that stood out to me, though, that I was actually quite surprised with, Hyung Jong Lee, 100% 3 from 3 shooting, but he only spent 7 minutes on the field. He finished with 9 points. So he was only 7 points behind our top scorer after 7 minutes. Why was Lee off the court? Was there something I missed that someone else did? Please let me know. But I was really surprised that Lee didn't get more court time. 7 minutes really stood out to me. I don't know if he's injured or something like that, but if anyone knows, let me know. But Hyung Jong Lee, only 7 minutes really, really surprised me. But Davo, strong as always, he can hold his head up high. Lockie missed a couple of little layups. But I didn't realise he only spent just over 4 minutes on the court. I thought he had longer than that. Goes to show how much I pay attention, right? Anyway, so that was the contest on Saturday night. In terms for Melbourne United, Dellavedova was huge for him, 18 points. And how many assists did he take? He only made 2 assists. It felt like a lot more than that. 7 rebounds, though. But Chris Goulding finished with 15 points, 40% shooting, 4 from 10. But he was shut down pretty well for the first bit of the game in particular, the majority. But when he had to stand up, he stood up, and he's too dangerous. Shea Lee finished with 13. The one who probably stood out to me was Marcus Lee. He finished with 100% from the field, 7 from 7, finished with 14 points, and he was dangerous always. So Marcus Lee was a real standout on Saturday night for me anyway. But yeah, the second half collapse really unlike Illawarra this year. So hopefully we can rectify it before tonight and Sunday. So again, we're playing tonight, 7:30 p.m. at John Cain Arena, Wednesday the 12th of March. But regardless of what happens tonight, we are back on Sunday, which is the 16th of March, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at the WEC. Tickets will be on sale by the time this pod comes out. So if you haven't, do what I did. Get some tickets. Unfortunately, I'm working both days when we can host a game for the foreseeable future. So I won't get a chance to see them again. But yeah, if you can get a ticket, hopefully they're not up the ante too much. I mean, I know last week, particularly with the South East Melbourne game, they got jacked up a fair bit, which I think was the reason why Game 3 against South East Melbourne didn't sell out, because they jacked them up a fair bit. But yeah, if you got tickets and the prices aren't too bad, well done to you. Right, and speaking of Hawks, we're going to stick with Hawks and a bit more of a structural thing. So they're making moves off the court in terms of their leadership structure. So obviously their CEO is departing at the end of the year, Stu Taggart. That was announced in January. But they're announcing a new leadership structure. So Matty Campbell, obviously club legend, won the championship with them, their last and only championship. He is expanding his responsibilities. I can't speak today. He's the new Chief Operations Officer in basketball. So in addition to his GM of basketball role, he's going to bring business experience. So this is a man who knows ball and business. I mean, shout out to the man. What a valuable asset, though. Really, ever since he's taken over as GM of basketball, if I remember correctly, he's been key behind the scenes to turn this around, and it sort of coincided with the Hawks turning things around as well. So his role is expanded, and then there's Nicole Walker will be coming in, who is the Chief Operating Officer for commercial. So it looks like a little bit of a structure change, but it looks like it's for the better. Hopefully it's for the better. But yeah, so reminder for the Hawks games again. Game 2, Wednesday, 12th of March, 7:30 p.m. in Melbourne. Game 3, Sunday, 16th of March, here in Wollongong, 5:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 16th. If required, Game 4 is in Melbourne next Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. the 19th. And Game 5, if required, which is where we'll get our home ground advantage back, it will be Sunday, 23rd of March, 2:30 p.m. Not a bad time for a bit of ball before school or work the next day. Okay, so rugby league now, and obviously the Dragons went down 28-20 to the Bulldogs, but the somber story from this contest, Ryan Couchman tore his ACL just minutes after coming off the bench. Now, this is devastating because it means he's torn ACL, so he is going to miss the rest of the season. He has to get surgery. So unfortunate for Ryan. Flano went on the record saying he had a great preseason, but unfortunately his season was over as soon as it started, which was devastating for him. And he was actually my Supercoach team as well. Not important, but yeah, devastating for the young bloke. But it means we'll get into it, what it means in terms of team lists for this week. But in terms of the game on the weekend, so 28-20, the Dragons went down. Christian Chilpolotu with a 3-try hat-trick and Jacob Little on the score sheet as well. Sort of a second-half comeback, but unfortunately it was too little too late for the Dragons. The Doggies getting over them at a sold-out Cogra, which looked pretty cool. Always good when the local grounds have sold out. So in terms of top performing in the numbers, Ryan Couchman unfortunately did his ACL. Toby Couchman top scored with 47 most in tackles. Excuse me. So Toby finished with 47 tackles for the contest. In terms of run meters, Connor Tracy top score for the Dogs with 224. Tuapolotu with 174 for the Dragons. So Tuapolotu, good day out for him. I mean, particularly with competition for the wing spot. So well done getting a hat-trick, and I'm pretty sure, would he be the top try scorer after round one? Only round one, but good to see he's getting on the score sheet early, particularly with competition for spots. Another positive one as well, Cody Ramsey in the New South Wales Cup, making, I believe it was his competitive return to rugby league after a few years out. We obviously spoke a couple of weeks ago about his ulcerative colitis, I believe the term was, and how it really threatened his career and his life as well. But good to see him back and putting in a good performance as well. He was apparently really good on the weekend, New South Wales Cup. And wouldn't it be a dream if Cody Ramsey made it back to the NRL? Fantastic to see him on the field regardless. But if he made it to the NRL, could you imagine how good the scenes would be? He teared up in his first trial game the other week. Imagine making his return to the NRL. But yeah, that's good little story there, but fantastic to see. Okay, so obviously with Ryan Couchman doing his ACL, that leads us to this week, and the Dragons are back at home against the Rabbitohs. Is it 3 o'clock or 5:30 on Saturday? One of the two, but it is at WIN Stadium. So back in Wollongong. NRL's back in Wollongong for this year. But Ryan Couchman's injury means there's one change to the side, and it's Blake Laurie. I believe he had a hamstring injury. He's coming off the bench this week. And obviously Couchman's making way. So that's the one change for the Dragons this week. And obviously they take on the Bunnies, who had a win against the Dolphins. Jamie Humphries looked pretty good for the Bunnies in the halves as well. But obviously the Bunnies are still missing a few players with injury. But it'll be interesting. I reckon it'll be a tight contest. It'll be a good contest there. But that's at WIN Stadium. So game one, there's a few decent games at WIN Stadium this year. My team, Parramatta's playing at WIN Stadium. I don't think that's one of them. Based off the weekend, I think it's going to be a long year. We could have done with an experienced head at the back, who coincidentally is now the Dragons fullback. But I'm still not happy about that decision from the Eels. But yeah, that's rugby league for this week. The Dragons getting or losing to the Bulldogs. In local football, now the Wolves, it's a bit of deja vu for them. They're still undefeated, but they had a late draw. They copped another late equaliser, this time against Rockdale. So they finished 1-1. Alex Jurasevsky for Rockdale equalising in the 88th minute. And last week, Wolves drew 2-2 against Central Coast, and they had a late equaliser, the Central Coast as well. So, yeah, Wolves 1-1, and their coach went on the record to say, praising their goalkeeper. So he said he'd be very surprised if the goalkeeper wasn't in the team of the week. Lots of chances for the Wolves, but unfortunately, no cigar. Well, they got a point. They remain undefeated so far, but in terms of the match voting, I think it was Dylan Ryan from the Wolves got 3, which is the max, and Nicholas Olsen got 1. So that's the Wolves for this week. Now, in terms of local football returned for round 1 of the Illawarra Premier League, and a few little interesting results, so we'll get straight into those. In terms of on Saturday, Wollongong Olympic had to come from behind to beat Helensburgh 2-1. Tarrawanna Blueies 0-0 with Albion Park. Now, Albion Park's got a strong team, so they'll be disappointed to be held 0-0, but as we'll get into it later, a few people are rating Tarrawanna this year locally. Coniston had a 2-1 win over Shell Harbour. Wollongong United cruisy 3-0 win over South Coast United Saturday night. Oak Flats got a massive 3-2 win in their first game in the top flight, 3-2 over Cringilla at their home at Keith Bond. The Nest, they call it. And Bulli FC won 3-0 over Port Kembla. Statement win from them. So the standout one from there, and the standout story, we're going to shout at them. Oak Flats Falcons getting their first win on the board for the season in their return to the top flight. Why this is a good story? Because a couple of years ago, they actually won the District League, finished first, but couldn't be promoted because of COVID rules. So it was during the COVID years. So for them to get back into the top flight, I don't know if they've been in the top flight before, or not for a few years anyway. But for them to get into the top flight, fantastic result for them. And to get a win over Cringilla, who got some players who have been in the Premier League and New South Wales Premier League or NPL for quite a while. So good result for them. But I was looking through the Mercury today, and they spoke to every IPL coach. And one trend that I saw in particular was the fact that the local coaches really saw Tarrawanna as a dark horse. Now, why is that important? Because they earned a 0-0 draw against Albion Park, who are predicted to be up there this year. And you see some signings of them. It's just like, wow. you really should be winning every game if you've got those signings. But Tarrawanna getting a 0-0 draw there. Albion Park's former striker Cameron Morgan now sitting up for Tarrawanna as well. So he's one of a few shrewd signings, shall I say, that stand out to the common viewer, if that's the word, or obviously to other coaches. But everyone's tipping Tarrawanna to be a dark horse, so you could see Tarrawanna in the top 5 this year. One thing I didn't realise is Connor signed a guy by the name of Jamie Coombs, I believe the pronunciation is. Coombs is a Gibraltar international. He has 32 appearances for the Gibraltar national team. So we're going international in the Gong, in the IPL. 28 years old, Gibraltarian international. Sorry, I'm a bit dyslexic today. 32, but yeah, wow. So we've got an international locally. Anyway, that's the Gong Pod for this week. Again, engage as much as you can with our content. Keep us going. And we're looking to improve it over time as well. So we'll keep you posted on that. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.